Well, welcome everybody to Your Health Matters. This is the platform when we talk to experts and all types of knowledgeable people that want to take responsibility and help you take responsibility for your health. Because really, we can have all the money in the world as we age, but who wants to spend it with doctors, hospitals, and prescription drugs? So at Your Health Matters, we try to get you to go the natural way so that when it comes to that point in your life, you've already got a good base of health. And this month, I am so excited to actually have our guest on, Stephanie Grunewald. She's an amazing person. When we first had our first conversation, we just kind of clicked because we have so many of the same beliefs around health and wellness and nature. But she's got credentials behind her up the you know what. So she's not only a transformation coach, she's also a psychologist. And she experienced her own burnout at one point in her practice, and she had some personal challenges in her life. We're all going to explore all about, but she really felt a calling to help women really find the way they prioritize their lives. And that's what she's working on now. She's expanded her work to mindset and personal development on the whole person, and she really wants to help people develop resilience and do it through nature. And she's got retreats, and we'll hear all about that from Stephanie. So welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
So, we talked a lot when we were in our personal conversations about nature. And, in my life, nature is so important. In fact, look at her LinkedIn profile today because she put in some tips about nature. And I so agree with what you're saying. How did you get to that point where you wanted to bring nature back into your life?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, honestly, it kind of happened just as a result of COVID. My mom had passed away and I threw myself back into my work, but I quickly realized I needed to find a way to process my grief and to really show up for my clients. And so while we were all in the midst of isolating, I decided I was going to start hiking. I just picked pretty waterfalls and set myself on a path to get out there. And it was truly a transformational experience for me. I mean, I feel so energized when I'm out there. I just get a lot of clarity. And it's honestly on my first hike that the whole concept of Oncorio was born, and really wanting to help women reprioritize themselves and utilize the true lessons that we can learn from nature to do so.
So tell me, what was your first lesson?
I mean, my first lesson, honestly, was just the ability of being adaptable. I think, a lot of the times we like to plan and we like to be in control, but really we have to be able to pivot and learn and grow. And so I was thinking about this in terms of, chameleons just naturally change and shift to whatever they need to. And I think for me, I'm trying to let go of all the planning. I mean, of course, there's some element of it, but really being able to recognize when the chart or the course that I've charted isn't going to work and I need to just adjust. And I think the ability to adjust really helps keep us grounded and gives us a sense of calm when chaos might be arising.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. I've recently been restudying Og Mandino's book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, which is not about sales, but he talks about one of his scrolls. He has 10. One of his scrolls is I am nature's greatest miracle. And that really, you know, that really says what you've been saying is to, take time for yourself to know who you are. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the foundation of everything. It's really easy for us to look to everyone else and figure out we're aiming for, what success looks like. But for me, it was really one of those moments where I love my counseling practice. I absolutely do. But I realized it didn't give me the flexibility to do two key things that I really love with my coaching business, which is to proactively help people. With my psychology practice, I'm reactively addressing mental health issues. And then having a community aspect, I think, is so critical. And that's another lesson learned from nature as well, is the need for collaboration. Just as nature has all the different organisms and their roles, we need people to support us. We need people to help push us. And so it's also just making sure that we prioritize those relationships in our lives as well.
Yeah, that's so true. And sometimes you find that symbiotic relationship from something that's you didn't think a person you didn't think you would have that connection with. I know when I plant tomatoes in my garden, it says that I should plant my tomatoes along with my peppers. Well, who knew, right? That
Yeah.
the two of them would work together. But for me, I have met the most amazing people on LinkedIn in businesses that I didn't even know existed prior to COVID and getting submersed in that community.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really quite amazing what's out there and how we can find these common threads and ways that you might not expect.
So you tell me uh, some of your favorite tips?
Yeah, so I mean, I think a few of the other like lessons, I guess, that I would help people to take away are the ability to foster resilience in yourself. And I think this is one of those things where a lot of the times when life throws a challenge at us, we need to learn how to face that adversity rather than feel like we can't, right? So it's really about that ability to bounce back. And that's something that, I mean, firsthand, that was my first lesson, right? My time in nature actually was the result of a major life event, and using it to bounce back. Another thing that I think is really important is efficiency. And I think a lot of people misunderstand why I focus so much on efficiency is, okay, great, I can do more, I can do more, I can do more. But really, the reason I want to help people be more efficient is because it frees up time for what matters most in your life. We spend so much of our energy on our work, and I want to help people break away from just focusing on work or bringing it home with them after the fact. And then I think the other really big thing that people need to remember is the virtue of patience. We often want immediate results, and we see it all over, right? Lose 5 pounds overnight, make six figures in 5 days, all these things. And we need to just remind ourselves that it's all about taking a step back, breathing, and just thinking about a sustainable and intentional journey rather than some fast-paced race. Those are some of the key things that I've personally taken away from my time in nature, and I think are really applicable to so many.
Wow. Well, and we're also getting questions and comments online here. So um, I have a question here about, so how do I develop patience? Because that seems to be a really big challenge for people. How would you suggest people develop patience?
That is a really good question. I think something that can be really helpful is if you can just find a quiet spot in nature where you can just sit and get comfortable and just expand your ability to be in the here and now. I think one of the reasons we lack patience is we're constantly thinking about what's next, or the next step in our process. And if you can start by just really grounding yourself in the moment, that helps slow things down. It also triggers a different part of your body because you're in a place of calm. And the reason I'm suggesting you do this out in nature is because you'll be able to just really be kind of immersed in all of the sounds of nature. You can be by a babbling brook or by a lake, or just listen to the leaves rustling, and that in and of itself creates a nice peace and calm. So that's what I would recommend as a starting point.
That's so true. You know, yesterday here in Chicago, it was actually kind of warm. It was 62. And I took a break, which I like to do in the afternoons, and actually got in my garden. I have just a small vegetable garden in the backyard, and just went and pulled out weeds and the plants that have seen their heyday. And that process of just purging for me was so freeing. I came back inside the house just energized because I felt like I had left something that I didn't need somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how about efficiency? You mentioned efficiency too. And that's, that's got to be really difficult when you're striving for patience and you're trying to be efficient. So, could you explain what efficiency really means to you?
Yeah, so for me, efficiency is really about a few key concepts. One is prioritizing, right? We are on all these different platforms, so we have notifications popping up, and it creates this sense of urgency for everything. And the reality is, it isn't all urgent. So if you can just step back and identify what are the things I need to get done today, and then scheduling the time to get those things done. A lot of times people don't schedule the time. And so they think they're going to do it in pockets of other moments, but if you're intentional, right? So for me, I know that I do my best creative work in the morning, and so I block my schedule out. So it's prioritizing, it's scheduling, and then there's also just the intentionality behind it. So we all have to check emails and things like that. Put time on your calendar for things like that too. So it's not an afterthought, it's not something you're popping into all the time, but you're doing it at moments where you can attend to it and then get back to getting other things done. So I think by just taking a little bit of time to plan every single day, and I encourage people to plan their next day at the end of the previous day. That way, when you walk away from work, you know you've got a plan. If your mind starts kind of wandering that night saying, oh gosh, what about? You remind yourself you have a plan for that, or just keep a running list. And then each day you can kind of figure out which ones you're going to prioritize.
Yeah, that is so smart. And being able to end the day and have a completeness, right? That um, you don't have things hanging over you. I like to say at the end of the day, just celebrate your success and what you've done, and to go from there. So tell me something else about nature that you find absolutely fascinating.
I mean, I think the ability to regulate our bodies by being in nature is so profound. So, just being in a natural landscape, whatever that might look like for you, it can reduce your stress hormones, which is amazing, lower your blood pressure, and it can promote relaxation. And this is all just done by like the sights and sounds of you being in this environment. And it's really, I think, quite fascinating how just being in nature actually can release endorphins, and that in general just helps you improve your mood and have overall improved emotional well-being as well.
Yeah, and being able, like you say, to really listen and to focus on what you're hearing and what it is. I have some property in Florida, and in the morning we go sit and sit out on the lanai, and being able to identify the bird song, like, oh my gosh, there's larks today, or there's ibis, or whatever that may be. To be able to identify that, it really helps to open up the mind to look at the breeze in the trees, and the waves on the water. Just as you said, being able to breathe, it helps us breathe and to um, bring in those endorphins and to lower our stress level. One of the favorite things that I like to do during the middle of a busy day, if I can, and if the weather cooperates, is to go and walk in the grass and just feel my toes in the grass and ground myself, I guess, in that earth.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things too, I mean, not completely related to what you're saying, but I encourage a lot of my clients when they're walking, if they're angry or feeling stressed about things, I like to encourage them to pound it out. So, like visualizing whatever that might be and just stomping on it. I mean, you mentioned the lovely day yesterday, and I got to the Botanic Gardens, and I spent the first half of the day just really like, I was amazed. I walked in the prairie part. So, just listening to the wind kind of rustle through that. And then at one point, I noticed, of course, my mind was drifting to something I was upset about. And so I took some time just to kind of stomp it out and everything. And by the time I got home, I was like so relaxed and so focused and ready to tackle things. And that was all just taking a walk and enjoying what was around me naturally.
Yes. So I encourage everyone to do the things that Stephanie is talking about, to prioritize, to become efficient, to be patient, and to breathe. Stephanie, you've given us such great counsel today. I was wondering if you would like to share some of your contact information with our audience so that they can get hold of you um, about any of the questions they may have.
Absolutely. I mean, the easiest thing to do would be to connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. It is just my full name, Dr. Stephanie Grunewald, so they can reach out to me there. Or if you want to learn more about, as you mentioned, my retreats and my mastermind groups and everything, they can go to my website, which is ancorio.com. That's ANCORIO.com.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, thank you for being a wonderful guest today, Stephanie. Our time here is done, but I want to thank you for being such a marvelous guest and helping all of the people who watch this at now or some future date with those amazing tips, techniques, and tricks that you have shared with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope everybody will just take a moment and get outside today.
Oh, that's what I'm going to do. Well, this is Judy from Your Health Matters, and we're going to say goodbye. And just remember to take care of yourself today because today's the perfect day to do that.